Happy New Year, Moneel.
Happy New Year, Mike. We can't see.
Okay.
How are you?
You still want to come in with a drum roll?
I mean, I feel like you were supposed to do that before I said hello, but
That's all good. Okay, our first Bold and Bold podcast in 2024, and the first time that we're live. So we have a very special guest today, a very dear friend of mine who I don't know how long I already know him, and we met a couple of years ago, where he was my facilitator and shaman on plant medicine retreats here in Switzerland. And I met him through other very good friend of mine. And since then, we had a couple of journeys together. So I'm very excited to actually have now a live connection to Los Angeles, to Iván. Iván, hey, welcome. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Mike. Thank you so much for having me here.
No, thanks for your time and being so spontaneous to join us here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And I have an apology for people that do watch us, because we went kind of quiet towards the back end of last year, and it's basically because I was sick for about 3 weeks. And so really, this is the first week when I've been able to talk without coughing. So be back.
Yeah, but the good thing is, we said we don't have a fixed agenda. We do it whenever it's nice. There was holiday season in between, so and I'm really happy that now we're here. We have an amazing guest, and Ivan, to be honest, I don't really know how always to introduce yourself, because what I just said to Moneel, you do so many things. I mean, you are now also video pro. I saw the YouTube channel that you just launched. It looks amazing. You're a speaker, you are a coach, you are a facilitator, you help with plant medicine, you have a scientific background, you run an Ironman. So I don't know, what else are you doing, and how can I introduce yourself to the audience?
Did you say Ironman as well? Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike. You're making me blush. But I don't know. Like, I think that's a great introduction. I in a way, I feel like to define a person by one of the things that they do limits them. For many periods of my life, I have been a label, I would say. I was a musician. I started studying music when I was 6, and until I was in my mid-20s, if they would ask me, who are you? I would say, I am a musician. Like, that's who I am. And then, thanks to plant medicine, I started breaking with those identities. And every time that I would fall into another identity, I eventually would feel that was constraining me, and that there were so many other things that I wanted to do. And so maybe your introduction was perfect. Those are things that I do, but who I am me, and I feel like every person is themselves, and there's no need to really label them. But so I guess that's what I could say about it. And thank you so much. That's really sweet of you. Can I share something with you at this point, Ivan? You are the second person, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and speak to a decent amount of people. And you are the second person who has effectively made this distinction between your identity as a person and the things that you do. Whereas what people do typically is their occupation becomes their identity, right? And so this is something I consciously try and say is, I do coaching, I work in technology, but not I am X job title in technology, or not I am a coach, right? Because ultimately coaching is one of the things that I want to do lots of things. So when I was, just before we started this, and I shared with you that whilst I was working out, I was watching you on YouTube, right? I was watching your beautiful YouTube channel. And I think it's one of the first videos where you make that distinction about kind of
purpose and what you do and that identification. So I'm curious, how did you do that? Was there an event that made you think, well, hang on, why am I identifying as a thing as opposed to what you just said?
I would say probably identifying myself with any of these things that Mike just said, and eventually feeling that ultimately that wasn't me. So probably was a way of beating that drum over and over again. I am this, I am that, and something I would say in my heart telling me, no, that's not who I am. In a way, I can say it kind of happened by itself. But partially, I would think that happened because I do feel I'm really connected to my heart and to what I am feeling. I am very sensitive when things, the way we say here in the US, when they don't land, right? When you say something, I am this, and something doesn't fully resonate. Like, even though I've been serving plant medicine for 10 years, to say like, that's who I am, it always felt like something doesn't fully click. And since you referenced the video on purpose, I feel like that video in a way was a consequence of me finding that out somehow throughout my journey, where in that video I described that at some point I felt, my purpose in this planet is to serve plant medicine and help people, go through these experiences. And, what I say in that video is that purpose is something that it is constantly changing. And that I found out because at some point, what was really satisfying and fulfilling to me, it stopped being satisfying and fulfilling. So if that would be who I am, then in a way you would think that should be the thing that fulfills you for the rest of your life, right? So I think that's when I started realizing there is no identity, even if it's extremely fulfilling at some point, that it ends up becoming someone's purpose, unless it's fulfilling your whole life. So I realized that one of the most maybe useful tools or skills to develop as a human being is the capacity to be constantly reinventing yourself. Otherwise, you would get stuck. And I think the last thing I want to say on that topic is, imagine you, which I'm sure many of your viewers are in this situation where where you studied something for a very, very long time in university. Let's say you became an architect or a doctor, and then you did a specialty, right? So you dedicated so much time of your life just to become this thing. And then you do it for 10 years or 15. And then eventually you're like, I'm starting to get bored, or this is not satisfying anymore. In a way, it's a problem, because in order to break with that, you also have to break with all the effort that you put into doing that, or into becoming that person. And that can be so challenging to decide to throw that out of the window, even though it is not throwing it out of the window, right? Because you learn so much and it's part of the life's journey, but that's probably how it feels like. And so the capacity to reinvent yourself, to be like, I am willing to throw this away and bring whatever is new, I think is so useful, because every stage of your life is so different from each other. Like who you are in your 20s, who you are in your 30s, who you are in your 40s, what you are interested in, the things that you're called to do, they are all so drastically different. And to get stuck with one of those things can probably hinder, you might feel like it is the good thing, but it ends up hindering that stage that it is calling for something else. So, a very broad answer to a simple question, but
yeah, but it's a complex question, and I think also you had so many. So how long did you serve medicine? For how many?
10 years.
10 years. So you helped thousands of people on those journeys. And how many of those struggle exactly with that point, so that they don't know what's my purpose, right? And identify myself as I'm a employee of that company and I need to sell cars. I mean, how many people do that?
So many struggle so much. Saying like, I really don't know what's my next stage in life, and I would love to know. I am a accountant. I am this. I am that. But I was taught that was supposed to be my thing, and I would, be economically stable and have a house and my career, and it's all happening, and it's just like I feel like something else is up there for me, and I feel like these times, like the 2020s, is a time where more people are starting to feel that, whereas our older generation, our parents, they didn't even question that. I think there was less space in the collective around, talking about our society as a whole, and there was less space for people to be allowed to even feel that. Like, you were that and you were that. Like, you don't even question it. You might feel unfulfilled and you don't even feel it, that you are feeling it, right? So, and now I feel like there's more of a liberation where people are more allowed to question themselves and I'll see if they can reinvent themselves. It's hard. It's really throwing all your safety out the window. And so
Totally.
I really salute everybody who does that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's also, just to your point around previous generations, I also think there is now an idea, or there is now in existence, collective consciousness, right? In previous generations, before social media, let's say actually not even social media, let's just look at let's look at things like AOL and message boards and all that sort of stuff, or internet relay chat, for those of you that are old enough to remember it. Before all of that, there wasn't this collective consciousness. And now that we have this collective consciousness, to me, what does that breed? Well, that breeds a curiosity. And these sorts of existential questions come when you approach yourself and your life and the things that you do with almost like a childlike curiosity, right? The what am I, right? The who am I? The what is this? The why? Why am I feeling this way? What is that feeling? Where do I feel it? And I'm grateful that, coming to the midpoint of my life, I'm grateful that for the second half of my life, I live in a world in which that exists. That's not to say that we wouldn't have been grateful in the generations of our parents, because the reality is we wouldn't have known about this, right? On the scale we do globally. But it's just, I'm grateful to be part of the world now, so that I can share space with people like yourselves, so that I can share this with my kids. We've had my eldest daughter dancing on the intro to the podcast because she loves the music, right? And, she Googled me and she's like, wow, Daddy, like because stuff like that is cool. And I think sorry, this is quite a long one, but there's just lots of things. When you talk about I am, that's where it should just stop, right? I am. Not I am a teacher, I am an artist, I am a coach. It should just be I am. What is I am? I am is the purest essence of yourself, it's your spirit, right? It is you. And that is fundamentally what we all are. And I think if I draw parallel monks, when monks shed worldly possessions and things like that, that is essentially what they're saying, is that I am the soul, I am the essence, I am the divine, I am everything, I am the universe, all within me and connected to everything else and everyone else. So just wanted to know that.
When you say I am, it just reminds me on that famous quote of Descartes with I think, therefore I am. And on one of those ceremonies that I experienced, all of a sudden I came up with that thing, okay, I think, therefore I am distracted, because you are. Don't have, and Ivan, I need to love, because you have a scientific background, and then also that strong connection to the spiritual world, or the way what you discovered and what you learned over the last decades. So how did it come? How did someone who started very scientific all of a sudden made that shift, and then now has that mission to bring both worlds together?
Thank you. I like that question. I would say, well, I grew up an atheist. I sometimes tell this story that when I was a kid, my dad, I pointed at a building that looked really beautiful in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where I grew up, and I said, what's that? And maybe I was 5, and my dad said, that's a church. And I said, what is a church? And he said, oh, that's where people go waste their time. And and I thought, yeah. So I think it's no coincidence that I ended up studying science, you know. And my mom was the same, both parents atheists, and yeah, I think that I'm really grateful for that. I would not consider myself an atheist at all in this moment, but I'm grateful for it because it gave me a very logical mind, and I studied meditation very early on, not for any, I would say, spiritual reason. I didn't like that word, and I didn't like it partially because I always associated with lack of logic, right? Which for a scientist that is super important. And so I started seeing meditation practices and stuff like that through the lens of science. And I think what did the biggest trick was ayahuasca, definitely, where I started really connecting to the divine in a way in which I didn't even know it was possible. And just having that experience, seeing it from the logical point of view, made me feel that, wait, it is also possible that all of these things that I heard my whole life, like we have the energetic centers, like the chakras, that logically could be that one of them are, if the connection to the divine, which is, you know, in the crown chakra, connected to the divine and to God, is blocked, it makes sense that you might become an atheist. And it also makes sense that atheism, it is simply a blockage of your connection to the divine, and that blockage happens not because you're born that way, but through conditioning. Some people have their heart completely blocked, also based on conditioning, not because they are born that way. And so that is, for example, a very simple way of connecting logic, if you will, to spirituality. And what I realized is that when I started talking about any of these topics in this specific way to people who were spiritual, they felt that they were connecting with their spirituality more. And when I talked to people with a more scientific way of seeing the world, they would also connect to their own scientist in them as well. And so, and also the other way around. Spiritual people would connect more with science, as scientists would connect more with their own spirituality. And also I noticed the opposite, that when I would go to a meditation class or a yoga class, and people would blow it out with ultra spiritual talk, that it sounds guru-like, right? It sounds like you're saying deep things, but no one is really landing with it. No one is like, oh, that like really hit home and I get it, like I felt it in my bones. It's almost like trying to be not relatable on purpose so that you can sound wise and guru-like. And I realized that takes people further away from spirituality, which it ultimately is a problem, because we are spiritual beings, and the more we're connected to our spirituality in a genuine way, I feel like our quality of life can improve drastically. We can become more compassionate, more forgiving, more accepting, and so it became some sort of mission of mine, or maybe if you want to call it skill or gift or something that flows through me to connect these two worlds, so that both worlds can merge closer together. And I would say bring spirituality into their life in a more real and genuine way.
And you mentioned ayahuasca, which is really a shortcut, I think. So my first experience now is 6 years ago in January 2018. And I had a similar experience, right? So the first, you think, what is that? So what world is that opening? And then on the other hand, you had all those people where you weren't unsure, can I talk about that? Is that something which is it okay to do that? Are putting people now into the world of the druggies or something? So what is that? And I like the way how you always describe the difference between medicine and drugs, and probably also interesting for our audience is to elaborate shortly on that, because so many people think, and first I need to spend 15-20 minutes talking to them that what's the difference between medicine and drugs. And I mean, you go in a drug store, a drug, you need to absorb more and more to have the same result. You need to get it all the time. It's definitely not like that for me. So the last ayahuasca experience I had a year ago, right? So at the moment I don't have a calling, but I'm totally fine because I found somehow or I reconnected with my inner child, or I found my purpose. And I said, okay, so now I feel good. And I don't know when I have it. So, but I really like the way how you describe those things between medicine and drug. And so maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. I think that we all have been, probably our kids are not going to have this experience as we had it with our parents, but our generation grew up in a world where if a substance is mind-altering, therefore it's a drug. And if it's a drug, therefore it does all of these bad things that we associate with drugs, like addiction, bad for you, neurotoxic, enjoy first, pay later, escape your problems, right? Like those are the things when we say the word drug, those are all the images that come to our mind, and the fact that it is mind altering, in a way it skips that idea. So we have mind altering, then we have that's a drug, and then we have it is all these bad things. So you can also remove the thing in the middle, right? And make a direct connection between mind altering means bad for you, addictive, all of those things. So, and we all grew up with that. I was talking to you about my dad telling me about the church, and my dad was very, how do you say? He had all of those kind of statements that were very intense, if you will. And so his opinion about drugs or anything that was mind-altering, which is not the same, right? We're making that distinction now, was terrible for you. That he would say crap like, the reason why you're having a mind-altering experience is the experience of your neurons disintegrating and burning out, and that's why you start having these hallucinations. And I grew up really scared of all of them. So I am. Why am I saying this? Is to be relatable to your audience, where I am sure a lot of people feel this way and might continue to still feel this way, or at least doubt it, right? If it's mind-altering, it has all of these issues. But this is not the case, and it has been proven over and over again, especially in the past decade, where there's more studies on mushrooms for depression, MDMA for depression, ayahuasca for depression, and all of these medicines where people take them, and then at the end of the experience, they are better. So at the end, I would encourage people to just break with the idea of mind-altering equals drug equals bad, and be like, when I take this, what is the result? And the result for some mind-altering substances is that you end up worse, addicted, and all of those things like cocaine or heroin or other ones, right?
Well,
but not for all of them. What?
or antidepressants.
Yeah, we're gonna go there in a second. And the medicine is, it's very simple. It doesn't matter whether it is mind altering or not. If you take it, and by the end of the effect or result, you are better, you are less addicted to something, you have a better life quality, your brain is better, any of these things. If you are more healed, then that's a medicine. Medicines also have this quality that you take them so that you don't have to take them again, right? Because if the purpose is to heal and you're healed, what would be the purpose of continue taking it? And you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, where you've taken ayahuasca a few times, and every time you felt a little better. It's been a year since your last one. You don't have a need to do it. And that doesn't mean you might not get sick again, both physically or mentally or psychologically, but you are not dependent on it. You don't need ayahuasca in order to have a good life quality, in the same way in which you might need, as you said, a minute ago, antidepressants, for example, where you need to take it every day. So a substance like antidepressants, I would consider it much more closer to a drug than to a medicine, because it makes you depend on it, and it is addictive. It is bad for your neurons. Like all of the things that we're afraid of drugs, they happen with antidepressants and many other pharmaceuticals. Now, I'm not saying that, so that's one example of the things that we're afraid when we talk about drugs, but not being mind-altering. So clearly, mind-altering and the things that we fear for drugs don't necessarily correlate. Now, one last thing I want to say on that topic is that I am not saying antidepressants shouldn't exist. Some people are suicidal. Some people can't lift themselves off the couch because they are slammed with depression. And so these substances are okay to get yourself out of that situation so that you can get your life back in track, but working on creating real healing. So depression is a consequence, it's not a cause. Depression is not the cause. The Western mindset or the Western approach is you have a chemical imbalance, therefore you are depressed, right? And what we're saying is you are depressed not because you have a chemical imbalance. The chemical imbalance is the consequence of your depression, and your depression, is the consequence of something that's going on with you psychologically. So if you were to heal what's going on with you psychologically, which could be childhood trauma, not being loved, not being wanted, you name it, there's many things that can cause depression, then there wouldn't be a need for antidepressants with all the side effects and addictive properties that they have. So antidepressants are okay if you are having a really, really, really challenging time in your life. And while you are using them, I would call them, it is a tool that buys you time while you seek for real healing. Once you do the real healing, you can get rid of this tool and move on. In the US, unfortunately, and I think in a lot of parts of the world, the approach is you are born wrong with a bad brain and you need this pill for the rest of your life. And that prevents you from seeking for healing because, I just need this. And so you will never really address the source of your depression. So
it's the more comfortable way, right? Because you are told that you can't do anything. You just take that pill, and that will be your companion for the rest of the life. So you can stay in your comfort zone because healing is painful, right? If you confront your trauma, if you confront your fears and those kind of things that are the reason for your situation, the situation you are in. If you're confronting them, it's a painful process. And I mean, you have seen it with thousands of people.
And it's maybe, I think it's maybe a bit more simple. I'm going to be cynical here. That when we seek treatment in the West, the question is never asked what's going on. The question is never asked, who are you as a human being? Right? It's a very existential. And in the UK, we have 15-minute appointments with our general practitioners, right? So they're never going to get into that. But and let's also remember that some people, doctors have a problem. So doctors may feel like, actually, this person sitting in front of me doesn't want antidepressants, doesn't need antidepressants. I'm going to prescribe 2 weeks of exercise or 2 weeks of going to community meetings so they make social connections to see how their symptoms are. Most people go to doctors, if they don't come out of there with a pill, they will report that doctor. Right?
Right.
To the governing standard and say, well, she's not doing her job. I went in for depression. I'm clearly, and we accept. And so doctors are in a hiding to nothing because on the one hand, they have to be careful about their patients self-diagnosing. Then on the other hand, if their patient even smells of threatening them with any kind of malpractice, they have to accept the self-diagnosis and go, yeah, I think it probably could be this. It's a travesty. Like, and this is way, way beyond just antidepressants.
Oh, yeah.
I was reading a book called, you've probably come across it, Lost Connections. Can't remember the guy's name, but it's a guy who's been chronically depressed since 14. And so he's a journalist and academic. He traveled around the world looking at what depression is and where it comes from. And, he spoke to Gabor Mate, among other people. And he looked at the studies behind the efficacy of antidepressants, right? So in studies, you just have to show that your drug can show a 1% improvement in symptoms once or twice or a few times, and then it gets approved by the FDA. It's sickening because effectively what you're doing is you're legalizing what people would consider witchcraft and putting it in a pill and making a ton of money off it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it is sad. And I feel like a lot of the doctors have, by the way, before I say anything, for any doctors out there listening to this, I want to remind you that I do have a scientific way of seeing the world. Even though I'm not an atheist anymore or any of those things, it's still the lens through which I see most things. So I am full in for Western medicine as much as for alternative medicine and Eastern medicine and jungle medicine, right? So I tend to not criticize or not criticize. I would say I would criticize aspects of every industry, right? So to say like all doctors, all medicine is wrong or stuff like that, I would never say that. So the parts that I would, I just wanted to clarify it because it can be easily misinterpreted. So the parts of the Western style of approach to medicine that I would criticize too is that the system is a combination of two parts of the system. One is the education. So doctors, when they go to school, they are not taught or encouraged to really know what's the cause for the patient and try to really focus their issue there. It's more like the quickest and partially the quickest solution, the better. This pill will really quickly take care of your symptoms, and patients also want their symptoms addressed much more than the cause for the symptoms. It's unconscious, but it is true. Like, oh, you're giving me this pill, I'm going to feel better, fine. No patient ever asks, or maybe not no patient, but generally speaking, they don't ask like, is this going to address the cause? So this is a shared responsibility, and the responsibility is based partially in ignorance, where that is not the focus or the intention. And the system where Western medicine is involved in, it is first that there's no education around this. It's always the education about how to, as quickly as possible, to resolve the symptom. Partially, as you said, because of money and insurance, and the amount of people that are sick, whether physically or mentally, is so much that there needs to be a quick turnaround. Like, okay, next, I have 20 more patients today, right? And then the other issue is, as you were saying, Moneel, is the system itself. That's even if there is a doctor that wants to be more holistic and more wholesome in their approach, as you said, the system might punish them for that, right? Like, what? You prescribe 2 weeks of exercise when this guy can be resolved in 2 minutes with this pill? Like, and so maybe doctors are also not there's no encouragement to do that. I don't know if they will be punished or not. Some might, but there's definitely no encouragement. Imagine a system that is the other way around, where they are like, we will totally reward you if you manage to heal this person or help this person heal with no pills. Like, how much that would change the mentality.
To be honest, I think you're totally right, and I'm also not against the school medicine or something. And I must say, if I break my leg, I'm happy to go to a surgeon, right? And I wouldn't go.
Yeah, don't go to ayahuasca there.
No, not at all. But and I have seen it also from the same thing that you said. I mean, you know my wife Etty, when she got a cancer diagnosis, and the doctors gave her 3 to 6 months to live with stage 4 lung cancer. Of course we did the chemo. So this was one of the things that everybody said, you need to do that in order to stay alive. Fine.
Yes.
In order to stay alive. And when we spoke to oncologists, and we said to them, okay, you know that Etty, she did ayahuasca, she did kambo, frog medicine. So, and afterwards, and we spoke to the oncologist, and they said, I mean, we know it's a very strong medicine, so they were open at least, so they didn't say don't do it, but they said we can't recommend it, so we're not allowed to recommend it. That's also fine. I mean, if people are open and if they talk to you, because everybody wants to help her in the end, it must be her decision. And this was then one thing that I somehow missed. So, and you mentioned as well, there is not that holistic picture. The school medicine, it's an industry, and I worked for that industry when I did advertising for pharmaceuticals, and we had our sales roadshows to doctors in order to give them a specific boni if they could, or specific rewards if they could sell more as that one truck or anything like that, right? So it's an industry, and the other part, alternative medicine, is not an industry, because you can't make money out of it. So you can't on one hand patent those kind of things so that you have your license because it's natural. Second part is healing has a lot to do with yourself, and it has a lot to do with mindset, and it has to do with the way, I mean, you are your own healer. And if you're not, if you just give all the responsibility away to somebody else, you just get a pill who helps with the symptoms, but you won't heal. And so I think especially inner healing has so much to do with your mindset and the way how you ask questions. Also, do your own research and take conscious decisions, and don't let everybody else decide on you as a person, because
that's really important, because I'm at a point where I'm drug free to treat my rheumatoid arthritis. I haven't been to the rheumatologist in 2 years. Why? Because I haven't needed to. Now the journey for that, and this is another thing that I would add to what you both said, is that the space for everything, the space for alternative medicine, Western medicine, mindset, everything, right? But what tends to happen at the moment is people not only tend to believe what they believe, but they tend to vilify other things. It becomes fashion. Oh, I'm vegan, right? Well, if you're vegan, that's great. Be vegan, enjoy it, but then don't vilify people that eat meat. Then there's people who swear by eating meat only and whatever. The reality is life is about balance. Whatever gives your body balance and your soul balance and your brain balance, do it. Do it with love, do it with intention. If you feel it might be helpful, share it, but don't ever try and ram it down someone's throat, right? And I see a lot of that happen, right? Now, going back to my root, how am I on top of it? Well, I look at my sleep, I look at my movement, I look at my stress management, I look at the food that I eat, I run, I weight train, I do all of this stuff. I'm drug-free. Now, that's the platform. The biggest catalyst for it not affecting me on a day-to-day basis is none of those things. They're just the platform. They're the base. The biggest thing is the mindset shift. What energy do I attach to my situation, to things? And, sometimes, I am a bit crazy and a bit dumb, and I don't want people to think that I eat clean all the time and I'm some kind of guru. I had a packet of crisps and some processed cheese about half an hour ago, right? But it's in the make. The things that you do consistently for most of your existence are the things that are going to reward you. And that means that you can let the shit in now and then, and your body will go, screw you, you can't do that, right? But like you say, Mike, love this word, consciousness. We are not taught conscious awareness about anything. We have to find it ourselves. And I think, going to something you were saying, Iván, about maybe our children won't have the same challenges as our generation did. They won't, because we will bring awareness to them. And I think collectively, that's the biggest gift we can give them, right?
And I am hoping that our children will say that, my parents, Moneel, Iván, Mike, they were so unaware. I really hope that. I really hope that what we think of our parents is what our children are going to think of us, because it means that the level of awareness continues to improve and evolve. So we were talking a lot about we are not taught any of these conscious aware decisions, right? And it makes sense because we can't be taught that thing that isn't known. And it is up for us to discover it, and it is up for our children to discover those things that we didn't.
Great point. That is a great point.
I mean, you travel the world and you talk to so many people. You help so many people with all the work that you have done there. Don't you? Do you see that there might be, especially since the pandemic, a shift in the world, that people are starting to change their mindset? Do you see something like that?
I think I would like more specificity for your question.
Okay. So
what are you referring to?
People. I mean, you have many leaders. You have accounts. You have actually every person, and you travel. I mean, every time I was talking to you in the last year, you were in a different country, right? And then I got your emails. Oh, now I'm here. So you spoke to so many different people around the globe, and I have at the moment the feeling that the world, especially after the pandemic, gets more conscious. They ask more questions about, okay, what's my purpose, right? And the funny thing is, especially now in the advertising world, purpose is the big thing. So that's the big buzzword, right? Because now every company wants to create their own purpose. So they need to have a purpose, and they hire agencies to come up with a purpose for them. We have to think, okay, if you fucking don't know what your purpose is, why do you have a company? But this is the big buzzword, at least in that industry at the moment. So in marketing, so many companies are looking for their purpose, because it also helps you. If the company has a purpose, it will help you with your, let's say, fluctuation rate, with the engagement of your employees, because they know why they are there, right? You can build better communities if you have a joint purpose. So, so it's interesting, and I really have the feeling at the moment, especially since the pandemic, that more and more people get aware. They don't take anything that is said, especially on television, for granted anymore. They ask more questions. They do research more or less bad somewhere. So maybe don't believe what you hear on social media, but at least people start to think.
They're also challenging.
Okay.
So that was a little bit
longer
specification of where we want to go.
Of course, I did notice that as well. Partially, obviously, I in the past decade traveling the world, noticing that societies, especially Eastern European societies, that were, I would say, slammed by so many wars, and where the only narrative was safety, security, attacking, and survival. To see, I go to Croatia often as well. I go to other places that I much rather not say online. So in these places where you would never in your life see somebody that has gone to war or has a warrior mindset, that kind of warrior. There's many kind of warriors. There's a peaceful warriors as well. To see them cry, to see them talk about purpose, to see them just melt and start understanding what love is and what forgiveness is, a word that might not have ever came out of their mouths, and just it's pretty amazing. I would say that I have been exposed to a lot of that, so in a way I am a little bit biased. However, the reason why plant medicine is becoming more and more popular is partially because people are seeking for it and they are in need of it, and they are realizing that the old narrative, basically what we were talking about of let's address symptoms, is starting to not work anymore. We stay there for a very long time, very, very long time, and eventually once it stops working, probably it really worked if you think about it. When addressing symptoms started, it was probably what was needed in that time, based on the society and the mindset, the collective awareness. And as collective awareness shifts into a deeper level of awareness, also our needs shift as well. And so to see all of these people, and then also not only, this kind of approach to healing and to well-being used to be only for hippies, if you will, meaning that is were the only ones that thought that there was something in there, but it was kind of dismissed by everybody else. And now I see plumbers, I see electricians, I see CEOs, I see businessmen, I see atheists and skeptics, I see people who have gone to war, I see people with closed hearts talking about wanting to open their heart, and it really gives me a lot of hope, and I think I want to convey that hope to your audience, because I would say most people are not exposed to what I am exposed in this regard. So there might be a lot of hopelessness that I also feel within myself too for moments going around. And I can tell you that there is a shift happening. I see it. And the trend is toward more of that. It is slow it feels slow because we want to see it right now. I want to see it right now for sure. I'm like, let's just love each other. It's like, let's heal. But if you think about humanity as how long we have been a species, which is 200,000 years, if this shift takes 50, 100 years, I think it's not as slow. It's slow in comparison to one person's life, but hopefully each generation will continue filtering those things that the generation that came before couldn't. And I do see it happening.
And I think also you have more now also with the internet, with stuff that you can find. I mean, we are really a global world. You can get information from everywhere. You can learn different languages now, even if you don't understand. You can use AI to translate it for you. So you have all the means in your hands to educate yourself and to use that to grow, right? So, and that's also a collective movement that is happening right now. So we see all that, how fast the world is changing over the last decades, and people got more aware of a better lifestyle. What means a positive mindset? Why? I mean, people start want to change longevity by doing biohacking, right? So you get more and more people into those kind of spheres or into such an environment that helps or that boosts even that collective knowledge, or maybe that change or that change that needs to come from different sides at the moment. So I'm also very optimistic, and everybody right now has it in their own hands to heal, because
sure. So there's a beautiful book that I'm reading at the moment, and it's a recommendation of Elisa. So Elisa Tidwell has been a guest on our podcast, but she's also a fantastic coach that was facilitating the business coaching course that Mike and I met on. And this book is called The Gentle Art of Blessing. Yeah. And to your point, what you do in that book is you give blessings to everyone. People you like, people you don't like. All this technology that is being used to stream this and host this. I'm feeling like that's going to be a book that's fundamentally going to change my mind. Because when blessing, I'm always in a place of love. And if you're in a place of, if you get critical mass of people really, then it is impossible for healing not to happen.
Yes. Yeah, especially if you're called to read something like that, you're already predisposed. You're already coming with the right mindset. Also, I think to the point that we were talking about, Mike, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. What's really interesting about it is that...
Shouldn't that?
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this specific case, more than the book itself, is that the book blew up in terms of popularity in the past year or in the past 2 years. But it was written almost 10 years ago. So
was it?
It's not that, it came out and it blew up. It's like there's something about the fact that the period of life or the stage of collective awareness that we're in, where all of a sudden those things, even though they were written before, are becoming popular now because there's a craving for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
So I think that in a way shows
what I love. I need to
where we're at.
We'll speak about books. I haven't read it yet, but my daughter gave me her Christmas present was a book, because she knows that I read a lot of books about personal development or those kind of things. And she gave me a book that probably she found on TikTok. So actually many people were talking about that book. And I'm so curious. It's called, from Brianna West, One and the One Essence Will Change the Way You Think. So I just flipped through a couple of pages. It goes in the same direction what you're just talking about. So it's I'm very curious to start reading it. But it's also something, so you have 101 essays. So it's not a book that you read in one go, but you read chapter for chapter and let every chapter sink in. And maybe you read one chapter in the morning and one in the evening, and then it takes 50 days. But pretty cool. And I love that. So even that my 17-year-old daughter comes up with books like that, because she was listening to TikTokers speaking about that. Makes sense. Okay. There needs to be a shift.
Yeah.
Ivan, what would you recommend to people, or maybe people who are listening to that and they feel stuck? And just, I mean, probably you have come across of many people who were doubting, especially in the beginning when I met you and said, okay, so what should I do? And they're always in that victim mode and are stuck and don't know how to continue. What would you recommend to that?
I think first would be an assessment, which is where I am. Ask yourself, where am I in my life? Am I satisfied? Am I happy? If the answer is no, am I willing to change? And that is am I ready, either willing to change or ready for a change, which are very similar. They are not exactly the same thing, but maybe you can ask yourself both questions. Because if you don't ask yourself that question, you don't get the chance to be honest and sincere with yourself before you start doing anything. So I see a lot of people who come to ceremony or who try other things saying, I came here because my friend told me that I will have a better life. And the answer to that is that, well, not quite, because if you are not really willing or ready for it, then you will not really get the benefit from it. So in a way, that is asking yourself, where am I? And so that I can meet myself there. Yeah, meeting yourself where you're at is so important, because that is the thing that will allow you to move forward and be where you want to be. If you meet yourself where you want to be, but not where you're at, you will never get there, because first you need to be where you're at. It's just, this is how, in a way, I use logic to talk about spiritual things, because I feel like it really works. And so what does it mean to meet yourself where you're at is, am I ready for a change? If I'm really honest and I'm like, not really, I am uncomfortable where I'm at, but I am more comfortable in my discomfort than how uncomfortable it would be to change, then I want you to know that that's okay. There's no issues with that. Actually, it's great that you can be that honest, because once you're there, you're meeting yourself where you're at and know that, all right, I would like to eventually be ready for a change, but I'm not there yet. And so I can focus my attention into getting ready to get ready. And that can make the difference between finally moving forward or getting stuck. The other answer could be like, yes, I am ready for a change. And then see what is it that it is calling you. If you feel like you are stuck, but you really want to change, but you are stuck, plant medicine, I think, is a great tool. And again, it's a tool, it's not a solution. It is a thing that helps you move forward. But if it's not plant medicine, I would recommend you to start any form of practice that puts you in touch with who you are. And that could be meditation, it could be yoga, it could be going to Tai Chi, to breathwork. Breathwork, in a way, is a form of plant medicine without plants. So it's pretty amazing. If you're like, I heard you talk about drugs and all of that, I believe you, but I still can't break with that mindset of mind-altering substances. Or you can just believe me, but be scared, which is also fine. Breathwork is a great tool to start getting unstuck and to start moving forward, because it creates a very similar effect and result. So we mentioned those things. Any form of spiritual practice that does not require faith, I would say, right? So meditation is a spiritual practice. Yoga is a spiritual practice. Breathwork is a spiritual practice. And they are also very practical. It's not just spiritual. Spirituality does not need to mean the opposite of practicality. So So if you're stuck and you start doing breath work and you feel like things are starting to move, and then you start going to yoga and things are starting to move, then maybe you are ready to go to a plant medicine ceremony, or you might not need plant medicine at all. But definitely if you're stuck and you're ready for a change, which you need to ask yourself that question first, then any of these practices or a combination of them will probably help you move forward.
Perfect. Thanks. Awesome. We are getting close to the end, so actually I would like to ask you still a question more about you. What are your plans now for 24? And you opened your own channel, so where do you want to go? Where do you want to see yourself by the end of this year?
Thank you, Mike. So throughout this decade, I've been serving plant medicine for 20 to 30 people at a time. And these conversations we've been having for this past hour between the three of us are, and many other things are topics that show up during ceremony. And I talk a lot during ceremony about all of these things. And one thing that I felt at some point was that these last 10 years were really good for me to learn all of these things. None of the things that I'm talking about I used to know. I learned them thanks to these retreats. A lot of them, I learned them as I was saying them. So I would say things that I never said or thought before, giving a speech on healing, and I'd be like, where did that come from, right? So it's almost like you're transmitting some knowledge that it is available out there and you become open to it. And then instead of, even though I was the one saying it, I was also the one listening it. And I was like, wow, so I used those 10 years to learn all of these things. And I started realizing recently that if I really want to see a bigger shift in the world, it can't be done 25 people at a time. Because for those 25 people, that is very, very, very meaningful. But it is, I feel called, we were talking about purpose, right? To expand this, not to 25 people, but to millions. I want millions of people to start making this shift and to become more aware. And so my goal for 2024 is to get as close as I can to make that happen. And that's why I decided to come out in the open and create a YouTube channel where every week I put out a video on some topic. Some of those videos will be directly about plant medicine because unfortunately the information out there is not good. It is very ungrounded. It is all about doing things traditionally, about the jungle, about this, which are fine, but I don't think it's what the West or the world needs in this moment. So some of those videos are directly about plant medicine or ayahuasca, but my intention is to put mainly videos about what we're talking, unfulfillment or depression or anxiety or how to live a better life quality or how to release shame. What is shame? Why is it so dangerous? What is fear? Why is and so that when people see them, something clicks in them that makes them move forward. And so my intention for 2024 is to be in as many podcasts as I can. So first, thank you so much for having me here because this is one of the things that I want. And to become a public voice for healing and help it expand to as many people as possible.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate this.
In this year, next one is follow. If you know someone who would be great for that little round here with these two bold guys, let me know, Ivan. Happy to see you. I mean, you spoke to so many people, and it was always great because we founded that platform to speak with people and share thoughts that might be worth sharing and also make the world a better place. So that was our purpose for the little thing. We said, okay, if we are just listening to that, it's also fine. It's also a good reminder. If more and more people are listening to that, it's even better. And we contribute to that. So if you like that podcast, please click the subscribe button and And I will put the link to your podcast in our YouTube comments as soon as I upload this video.
There's also in the spirit of purpose, I think I'd just like us to sign off by just saying to people, just be yourself. And you're probably looking at the screen right now thinking, I don't know what that is. What the hell do you mean? That's exactly why to spend time being yourself, whatever that means to you. So thank you, Iván. Thank you, Mike.
Lord.
Thank you, Moneel. Thank you, Mike. And we can talk later about which kind of guests do you want here, and I'll redirect them to you. I really hope that just to close, that your audience, by hearing this, is a little bit closer to either a more healed version of themselves or a little bit closer to start that journey, because it is absolutely worth it.
Totally. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Ciao.